Hello! I think it worked. I think I turned everything on and off. I can hear myself. I know I did. Ah, I see what's happening here. Uh-oh. Let's see. All right. I think we should be good now.
Are we good?
I think we're good.
Are we good?
Yeah.
I'm good.
Esther, give me a mic check. Hello, darling.
Hi, Esther. Jill is
Yes.
our semi-silent partner, yes.
Yes. Hi, Jan. Hello, everybody. Hello.
Hey, Jan.
And hello to Laurie. Everyone, we've got Laurie LaBar. Oh, my God. It's time.
It is time.
Time. She's here. There's nothing better than talking to the brains behind the brains that we read.
Okay.
And Laurie, before I get into any announcements or anything,
Yes.
we just have to start by telling you that this book was incredible.
Oh, thank you.
It was really incredible. Like, we loved it. We were never short of things to talk about, things to be wowed about. And I have to say, of all the books we've read, which are quite a few at this point, 12, 13 more, this book packed so many quilts into one book. Like, do you actually know how many, by the way?
There are about 300 illustrations, but there's some things are duplicated, so I'm going to say about 250.
Oh my goodness. Like, that's a lot. That is a lot.
It's like
Yeah.
304 or 308 illustrations, and then so probably about 250.
Yeah. Jan says, hi, Laurie.
Hi, Jan.
And Esther's like, you're all amazing, not just good. Thank you, dear.
Shucks.
So before we really dive in, because we want to dive in, let me just do a few announcements here, because it's just that time of night that we have to. Okay, if I could figure out where my screen is, that would be great. Okay, so here we are. It's August. We're at the end. It's crazy. Oh my God. So all this scary stuff is all done with. So here we are on the 19th. Steph is in her normal schedule for the rest of the month. Next week, we go into the free zone. I don't know yet what that's going to be, but between myself and Stephanie, there's lots of stuff to talk about. Between her fabulous trip to England, I recently went to the Shelburne in Vermont. So we have things to look at. So you're going to want to be there for that. We have not decided on our next book yet. Hang tight. We might announce it by then, what the next one is. And if you do have a suggestion, you're welcome to share that with us, either here or our email at quiltnerding@gmail.com or on our social medias. You know where to find us.
Yeah. We don't make ourselves scarce.
I know, right? We're everywhere all the time, even behind you. So the one other thing to mention is we are knee deep in American Quilt Study Group seminar registration time. You guys hear us talk about it a lot. The whole reason we decided to read Laurie's book now is because seminar for October this year is going to be in Maine. And I'm so excited because Maine in October is fantastic. And we were just talking about the field trips before we got on here live. There's lots of great stuff. So if you get on to AmericanQuiltStudyGroup.org, Steph, can you stick that into the chat?
Yeah,
and then, thank you, dear. I don't have my thing open at the moment. So it will also be in the description later if you want to pop in for that. If you go onto the events tab here and 46th annual seminar, you're going to come to this page, which kind of gives you all the rundown here. Registration closes September 25th. Don't wait, things sell out. The program is here. There's more general information here about hotel bookings and stuff like that. You do need to become a member in order to attend, unless you come to the day that is for the public, which is Saturday the 18th, which you have seen me post about that as well. And if you find any of this confusing, because once you open up the schedule, which actually I have the schedule right here, it can be confusing. So please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Stephanie or any other of our other member nerds that you guys know. We're happy to help you, get going the first time around. It's one of those things where, like, unless you've like done it, like it just seems a little daunting sometimes, and it is. But it's so worth getting there because, oh my God, it takes me, I don't know about you guys, but like I take like a week or more to process when we leave because of all the things that are in my brain after going to seminar. It's
I
totally
just
worth
felt
it.
like I finally found my tribe.
Yeah.
When it's funny, last year when we left Terrytown in Connecticut, I drove home. It's about 3 hours. And it was one of those things where like you start driving and then like an hour in, I hadn't turned the radio on. And I was like, how did I get here? Like, who was driving this car? Like, because my brain was on overload thinking about everything. It's the best time. It's like a non-negotiable for my calendar now.
Yep. Same.
So,
But
with
I
that,
think we're getting ahead of ourselves. We should probably. We've talked about Laurie a lot and her wonderful book, but should we introduce Laurie or let her mention things herself?
by all means, dear, take it away.
Who, me or her?
Stephanie
Oh,
was
thank you. Like, she wasn't saying anything. I'm like, oh gosh, am I supposed to start now?
Well, as we know, Laurie LaBar wrote this wonderful book that we read. So, yeah, she is the curator emerita. Did I get that right? Of the Maine State Museum. And you have a really fascinating background. And so I think we should let you describe that. But yeah, we were just talking about how many images are in this book, and this is a fabulous book. And I am so excited to come see the exhibit. I feel like I've got a leg up because I've already seen a lot. And I think going into an exhibit, sometimes it's good to go into an exhibit knowing what you're going to look at, because you could beeline right for the things. So why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, and then I know you
Okay.
have a little PowerPoint to share too.
Thanks to Pam, it wouldn't have occurred to me, but I already had some of this for something where I went to a college class about what can you do with history, and so I had this already. And then, well, actually, I forgot to ask because we got sidetracked with archaeology, but there's a few slides at the end that are about how one transfers from book to exhibit. If you're interested, I'll do
Of
that. If,
course.
if it's too if it's too much, then
No, by all
where is
means,
it?
share all the things. Hi, Janet. Janet said she really enjoyed the book.
Oh, thank you. Now where is okay, I'm screen sharing, but where the heck? Hang on, I've got problems. I can't find there it is. Where's the screen? Where is how am I missing slideshow? There it
There you
is.
go.
From beginning. There we go. Can everybody see it now?
Yep.
Everybody's
Looks good.
okay. So, I of course can't see the whole thing because there's this big thing at the top which is in the way. But so anyway, what is a curator? Well, because that's a word that gets used a lot. Um, in the museum world, a curator is someone who has intellectual control over exhibits, they're the ones that make the decisions with they're the first that make the shepherd the decisions about what to take into the collection. We can't just take in whatever we want. We do have to talk to our colleagues, but still, it's really under our guidance. We have to catalog these things that come in, and then we have to also sort of get information to the public through exhibits, through labels, through talks, through books. These are the 3 books that I've written so far. And my and yeah, so anyway, that's mostly what a curator does. And how did I get here? I was born in Wisconsin. My parents were 19 years old, barely 19 years old. And we moved all over the place because my dad was getting his master's degree and then his PhD in different places, and including Yellowstone Park, which is where he did his PhD research, and then we lived there as well as kids. And then we moved to Mexico and Venezuela before coming back to the US. So probably not terribly surprising. You can tell I'm the one with the hair. You can't tell it from my short hair now, but so I wound up becoming an anthropologist, and being my first career was archaeology, prehistoric archaeology, and then I worked for an outfit that did cultural resource management, CRM it's called, and that is low bid archaeology. That is when anything that is federally funded or federally licensed has to have archaeological work done with it. And so if somebody's putting in a sewage treatment plant, if there's a bridge going in, if there's a dam getting relicensed, you have to do archaeology. And that's the good news, is that things that we're learning about the past. The bad news is that you can be, let's say that you're putting in, you're updating your sewage treatment plant for town X, and just looking at the landscape, that the most likely spot that there's a dig is 500 feet that way. Well, guess what? That's out of your jurisdiction. You can only test the area that you're in that's affected. And so, and plus you can't really talk to the public much. Everybody's very interested, but you don't have time because this is low bid archaeology. You're trying to fit tons of stuff in. And so when I started coming to working at the Maine State Museum, I started there in '95 as their Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act Compliance Coordinator, which I can say all in one breath. And then I became one of the teachers of the archaeological field schools. And I decided that really that was the best, because research archaeology, you say, that looks like an interesting site. What can we learn? As opposed to, gee, I wonder if we're going to find diddly squat here, which we did in the first dig I did in Maine when I came to Maine was it was 4 weeks of finding absolutely nothing in 30 pits a day of nothing. And we knew they were all 5 miles over there. So anyway, it was a treat to do research archaeology. And then I really decided that I liked being in a museum setting. And so I went to Winterthur, which is in Delaware. It is the country's foremost school also for museum studies in a way, but it's really not museum studies. It's teaching people how to be curators. And then they also have a conservation program. So that's where I was, and that's what this bottom picture is. It's a quilt at Winterthur. So then when I was done, I actually got very lucky and came back to the Maine State Museum, which is here and here. A job opened up, and I was thrilled. And then I was there for over 20 years. I was there from '95 to 2013, and I took 2 years off for grad school. And in those periods, I still did my archaeology work. So I was there for a long time. And many of those last years I was the chief curator of history. So I was responsible for also, this is the governor's house, and I was responsible for everything there too. I was responsible for the portraits in the State House, as well as all the other things at the Maine State Museum. I did a lot of exhibits over those 20-something years. These are 4 of them. This one I inherited because the curator left for greener pastures, and it was about guns. I don't know anything about guns. And I said, okay, I can do it, but I need to focus on the gunsmiths, not the guns. And I had a blast with this exhibit. I learned so much. It was fascinating. But that was a good test of my storytelling skills, because I didn't know very much. I really relied on what other people had written and researched. And I only found one new gunsmith, but that was still a triumph, because the person who had written the book was a book on it was very thorough. But it was really fun to sort of take all the data that you're finding and figure out what threads of story can be told from it. And in this case, the men were all either inventors or sportsmen or a bit of both. And so that's how I sort of told the stories, is through their lives. So anyway, there we go. You don't have to hear about all my exhibits. But I will tell you about my 2 favorite ones. The one on the left is Uncommon Threads, Wabanaki Textiles, Clothing, and Costume. That was in 2009. And there was also a book by the same name that opened at the same time, which was my first book. I co-wrote it with a colleague. And let me tell you, if you ever are tempted to write a book, get a good editor. because we had a good editor, and while the first time you get information from that editor, it's a bit of a gulp. Your ego kind of goes, ow, I thought I was an okay writer. Well, guess what? They'll make you a better writer. And we won an international book prize with that. So I called my dad and said, Dad, I have nowhere to go but down. So this is what this, and I haven't won the Pulitzers, so I guess that's true. But this is about Wabanaki, the prehistoric textiles here, and then historic textiles here. And if you look here, you can see that this is actually incorporates not only beads, but also silk ribbon applique, which is to die for. The stuff is about 1/32 of an inch wide. You have 2/32. No, that's a 16th. Yeah, it's really narrow. Anyway, you've seen pictures of it in the book. So, and then the other thing which I have loved is Maine Quilts, and that's not even open yet. So this was supposed to open, the book was supposed to come out in 2020, and we were busy that year. What can I say? And then it was supposed to open and so the book came out in 2021, which is when the exhibit was also supposed to open, but the museum's HVAC system failed. Talking about low bid, it was a 50-year-old low bid heating system, and it finally failed. It lived long, much more time than it was supposed to. But it failed in a room that had asbestos problems, in a mechanical room that had asbestos problems. So it shut down the State Library, the State Archives, and the State Museum, and the building is not yet open. So at when Maine Quilts will open when the museum opens, but meanwhile, since we were all supposed to open the museum last March, we thought the museum would be open, the exhibit would be up, so that we would be all set for seminar, AQSG seminar. And that has not happened the way it was supposed to. So we are actually setting up this exhibit in a museum that is closed. So it'll be kind of a trip for visitors. They'll get to come into this sort of a construction area and then go upstairs, and here's this exhibit already. There's a little bit of tweaking. So you can't borrow things from another museum if you're not open. So we are taking, because as we all know, quilts are so fragile, quilts are only out for 6 months. In some cases, they're out for a year, but we take them down after 6 months, re-roll them, and hide the other half and show the other half. So I'm borrowing a few things from the second half and bringing them to the first half so that we can show them. And then we have some private collection quilts as well that are on loan. So those are my so these are some of the things that you look at when you're doing research for a book. And this took about 10 years. Writing the book took about 10 years. I'm part of a very small study group. The Maine Quilt study group is very small. And it was led by a woman named Judy Roach, whom we loved very much. She passed away 2 years ago. But she at one point looked at me and she said, Laurie, you've got to write a book. And I was like, okay, I guess I do need to write a book. So with her encouragement, I started writing the book. And then unfortunately it was long story short. She was help, but she wasn't as much help because she got sick. But anyway, this is some of the work that I did to do the book, as well as to do the exhibit and to do the paper that I'll be talking about at seminar. And so I'm looking at this is just one page of things that has I'm a big fan of Excel spreadsheets. That's how I kind of keep. Pam's a notebook kind of gal. I'm a spreadsheet kind of gal. Although I do have, I do have lots and lots and lots of notes, lots of files. But anyway, talking about how it's going to fit, where it's from, who it's by. These are all made by the same people. So I'm also looking at fabrics. I'm looking at names and doing the work on that. I could show you that in a second. I'm looking at the towns and where the mills were and how the mills are changing over time. I'm looking at the towns. Where did everybody live once I find them? I'm looking at styles of quilting, and I tried looking at fabrics, and it's just too hard for me to look at fabrics and figure out if different towns were using different stores. Got a hint of that, but I'm not really clear on that yet. but you do see some things like that as you're doing the planning. So shall I go on with how you get from a book to a exhibit?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I've got this book, which is great because I was able to really go into things in the book. There's some things that I'm going to go into further depth with. In a paper in Uncoverings that I got accepted. So Uncoverings, for those of you who don't know, is the only peer-reviewed journal on quilts in the country. And so I got a paper in, and I'll be presenting it in October because I'm also the local coordinator. So apparently, being the local coordinator, coordinating the tours, and wasn't enough for me. I had and building an exhibit; those weren't enough. So I needed to do something else. So I have to write a presentation as well and do that. But so I had all that data from the book, and I decided this is how I was going to tackle it. So I was going to have quilts that reflected 250 years of Maine history, but I also wanted to focus on community. So when you first come in, the first thing you're going to see is quilts that talk about community in some way. And these are the different categories of that. And for example, tradition and colonial ties, I think that's even a chapter name in the book, because as you now know also, as late as 1790, over 90% of the white settlers in Maine were of either British descent or were just plain British. If you add the Irish in there, it goes up to like 98%. And so, not surprisingly, the quilts that you see early on, the early quilts you see, have echoes of British, like British quilts. So here's a medallion. Here is a whole cloth quilt with this double line of quilting on the outside, these circles, this tree of life, which is totally Baroque. And so one of the things that, of course, is a hiccup. With the quilt exhibit, like I said, you have to have two halves. And I don't want to try and have two complete different exhibits. I wanted to have the same themes running through. And so I was able to find quilts that complemented each other for the beginning and each half of the exhibit. And this is what we have for tradition and colonial ties, which is the first 30 or so years of the 1800s. The last 30 years of the 1800s, we have a lot more quilts. And there's a reason for that. It was because, of course, that technology had changed. Things were much more industrialized. It meant that the relative cost of fabrics was so much cheaper. And what happens when fabrics are cheaper? People say, "Oh, cool, let's use them," and they just go bananas. So, that's one of the fun things about doing this exhibit. These are the quilts that are going to be out year round. Everything's color coded in this. So this is for when I was making presentations to people, telling them how much I needed this to do this and how we needed good money. I did a presentation that had this, so that this is purple is first, green is second half, and then these are in cases, and then these are going to be up all year, and just you'll only see half at a time. And then finally, you get to do some layout. And the funny thing is, layouts really change over time. So this one, I can't remember. This was, I think, 2020 maybe, where we were planning on it happening in 2021 because we were already full pandemic at this point. But if you take a look, the layout has changed somewhat since then. But anyway, it's because we've had more time, we've been able to, it better be good because we've had time to plan. And then you finally get to write, haiku herstory. The problem with one of the joys of working with quilts is that you can, in fact, read into them. You can read things from them. You can extract information from them, even if there aren't labels. You can get information from them that can then inform you about what's happening in a community or in a state. And the problem, of course, is that people don't read. People have no attention span when it comes to reading labels. And so the longest they tend to read is 50 words. So my introduction has 75 to 100 words. I can't remember how many I wound up with. I think I wound up with 79 or something. But area headings, I have up to 50 words. But here's a figure caption from the book. And this is not a big figure caption, but look, it's 49 words. It's much longer than 25 words. So it's really a challenge to get the exhibit labels to just distill down what you want to say. And so I call it haiku history, but in this case it's haiku history. But wait, there's more. So with an exhibit, you also have education planning. You have, in this case, there's two videos, one that is about kids and comfort, and one that's about quilt makers and community. You have to edit the script. You have to edit the layout, as we just did. You saw that. And then you have to consult with conservation because, well, we had to anyway for the book because just photographing things. Oh, no, never mind. I took that out. I took that out because it was too many slides. So, and then you have to construct it and paint and all that kind of stuff and install. And then there's marketing. Ay, 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 ay. So I think that's pretty much how I got here. Let me just see. Yeah, let me do one more screen share. That's not what I wanted. Where's screen share? There we are. Screen share. Okay, so this is the type of thing that I do with Excel. So here, there's over 30 quilts. There's like 39 quilts in this collection of quilts that are all from one county in Maine from between 1843 and 1875. And I'm trying to figure out how are all these people related. These guys, I know these quilts are all made by one church before this before this black line. This is all made in a 6-year period. And by a single group of women at the Cumberland Center Congregational Church. And then this is made a generation later. This is around 1870, 1880. But all of these also trying to just sort out. So the nice thing is they're all album quilts, so most of them have names. And then I just start with the names. And unfortunately, there are like 800 of these things.
Wow.
And so then I just try and figure out the colors mean that they're on more than one quilt. And that's where I can start trying to find communities. So here's something, when we get to this part, keeping in mind that once we get to P, N is the last one of the first generation, and then O and P is the next generation. But you're looking for things that are connections without that. And sure enough, here we go. There's some that have connections on almost every quilt has 1 or 2 connections, but not very many. So you start to get a feel for community.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to do a lot of translation for that. So I think that's where I am. And
that was fascinating. I really like to see people's kind of method behind the madness. Because for me, like I'm a big kind of notes person. Like you see those crime shows, right? Where they have that big bulletin board and they have the string.
yeah,
I'm kind of like one of those people because I want to be able to, like, that's one reason why I don't always gear towards Excel is because I have to scroll. Like I want to be able to see the whole thing at once. But like seeing all of your, like that, you inputting all that into Excel, that's a lot of labor.
Yeah. This is just one town's worth of printouts from genealogy stuff. This is one of 6 file folders full of files. There's a lot of info here.
I'm just curious because we didn't ask Pam, but I'm pretty sure I would know the answer from her. But I'm just curious to ask you, like, in your retirement years and the things that you're working on now, are you open to maybe like some mentoring for people that maybe like
I might be?
Well, yeah, like I'm just thinking, like, for anybody listening to us here that are like, I really want to get into some heavy research, but I'm afraid, just having someone kind of hold their hand and be like, well, here's how my brain sees this. I think people like yourself and Pam's, or even people that maybe want to be like, I don't know if I want to go to school for curation. Like, what do you think? And you could be like, I mean, just the stuff you showed us tonight. I'm like, oh my God, like, look at that.
Yeah. And the other place I would send people is AQSG. They have a mentoring program.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a member of AQSG, so darn, I should
but
be
I
part of
will
that.
say that I'm hoping that maybe we'll broaden it more. But the mentoring
Yeah,
at AQSG tends to be more about writing, and
yeah, that's true.
there are a lot of people that want to research and have no interest in writing. So
Yeah.
I am keeping my ears open for avenues of
Uh,
mentoring that don't necessarily include publishing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
and it's hard to figure it out because if all you want to do is just have fun figuring it out on your own, it will be
mhm,
hard to have a mentor because what are you going to do with the data?
mhm.
People want to know
Yeah.
that you're getting information out there, that you're sharing this. So I think that's the only hiccup there. But I would absolutely be open to that.
Well, I guess the other thing there would be partnering people with someone that
Yes,
wants to write. Like,
yes,
I'm willing to do all the
absolutely.
research if someone else is willing to do. Because that's the thing for me. Like, I have 3 degrees and 10 years of school. I don't want to write anything anymore.
Well, I don't mind writing because I spent my whole career writing, and I do a lot of stuff on graph paper. This was trying to figure out how do I come to terms with all the variation in labels. I mean, labels in block patterns. This is how do I find what quilts are related to each other? I finally came up with this was one of the clusters.
Oh my gosh.
This looks like hard science to me. Like,
This was, well, that's the thing. When you come from I'm an anthropology background, which is not a hard science. People, but
I am
you
too.
still, yeah, that's right. But you still think about things in certain ways. So,
Hmm.
yeah, there's a lot of you can approach this from a lot of different directions. So, if you're a computer geek, then you're going to approach it from a completely different direction as well, and use your strengths that you have from that. Because everything that we do, all of our backgrounds, that adds to, we bring strengths from all that and can use them in different creative ways, I guess. I just,
Hmm. Well, let me see here.
I would be opening to mentoring, but just not until next year.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to find where you're going to
I can't
wedge
do
that
anything
in.
right
Well,
now.
that and I was gonna say the year's almost over too.
Thank God.
In just looking here, you obviously your PowerPoint has answered.
You hit a lot of our questions.
Mm-hmm.
Not that many, no.
You did hold up something before we got online that it's my question. I think it was my question was how do you, and you're not the only one I've seen do this. I believe Lynn Bassett also.
Oh, I got the idea from Lynn.
Some wonderful tracings. I mean, how do you
Yes.
get that quilting, like using
Can
your
you,
Mauer tools?
Could you maybe pull up that slide again that showed?
I will do that. Let's see, where is it? To be
And
shared.
for any of you sitting by, let me see if I can find it real quick. It's on page 26 of the book.
So this is one that there's 3 ways that I know about to trace these. And I'm sure there's more, but there are 3 ways that I know about to trace all the quilting. Because what's exciting about this quilt is not the fact that from a distance it just looks like this tomato red thing with shadows on it. When you get closer, all of a sudden it has all this interesting quilting. And how do you communicate that to people? Well, what Lynn does, she has my career, they always supplied you with a PC. So I am hopeless with iPads. I don't know how to use them. But Lynn is fluent in iPad. And so what she does is she just blows up the picture and just starts tracing
Just traces.
on her iPad. What I do is probably how Lynn started out, maybe, I don't know. I print them out. I had access to Photoshop, and so I would tweak the brightness and the contrast so that I was really maximizing. Because I didn't care what the background, I didn't care what this looked like, and then I would print things out. I cut them into 4, blew them up, printed them out, and then I just absolutely hand traced over Mylar with Mylar and a very small pen, and then an alcohol. I found that actually fine tipped. The problem with pigmas is they're hard when you make a mistake. It's really hard to undo that mistake. But when you trace with a Sharpie, denatured alcohol takes care of the problem. So that's what I used for that. And then there's another way to do it, of course, which you can't really do. Well, you can do it with a quilt. It's just quilts are kind of bulky, but and you can, one of the things that I had to do it with petticoats. So in the book, I don't know what page it is. Somebody will have to find that. In the book, there's petticoats that are quilted, and I sat down. Can you see it? Yes, you can. You can just sort of see that there's a pattern there. So I sat down with, oh wait, you can't see it because I'm still screen sharing. Laurie, don't be an idiot.
I mean, we could see it. You
Yeah,
just
we
weren't
could.
big.
Yeah, you're just a smaller thumbnail of you.
There we go. Now you can see it better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this thing is long. It is several feet long because it is a tracing that I put the mylar over the quilt and then just kept on going as the quilt got wider. I didn't, only in the middle do I actually put the fine quilting in the middle. There's only one place where I actually recorded that. Because really the overall design was what I was after. And then after that, I photographed it, shrunk it, did all kinds of things with it. We had a photographer who was shooting straight down on all the photography that was in the book. Yep. So he was shooting onto a surface flat on. So I had him photograph these. And then I was able to print them out again in pieces. And then I worked from there, and I was able to bring it down, trace it again, bring it down, trace it again. I think I had to trace it 3 times before I could get it to something that was manageable to scan for publication. So those are the 3 ways I know of about tracing for these. I think the easiest for me was probably tracing from a photo, but you can't do that with something 3-dimensional.
How do you, even if you're kind of tracing like from a photo or like you said, Lynn, using it, how do you account for scale though if you're not like on top of like
with the quilt itself, I had, because it was photographed straight on, it's photographed straight on. Bunk. So that is there's no distortion there.
Mm-hmm.
We were very careful to photograph straight on. So that was whatever I was going to get was going to be pretty darn faithful. There's one little hiccup right here where it didn't quite flatten, but you can round to the nearest reality on that without too much effort. Was actually the trickiest part was using the full-size mylar and the petticoats, because of course they're gathered at the top. Mm-hmm. And so I had to keep moving, and then I'd have to line things up and then keep drawing and line things up. And if you weren't careful and you didn't have it absolutely straight with the bottom, I kept the bottom as my guide to keep it straight, you could find yourself going off the paper, and then you'd have to erase, go back. So that was the trickiest, because you really did have to pay attention there.
Mylar's just a tiny bit slippery.
Just a tiny bit, just a dite. Mm-hmm. And I, bless the people, the curators at those museums, because they really trusted me. And, usually when you're working with artifacts, you only use pencil. And here I am with a Sharpie. No problem. With the only two petticoats from Maine I've been able to find. And yeah, no problem. Hand me that Sharpie.
Well, that's why, I didn't, with your piece of Mylar there, obviously that, considering making those tracings, one might think that would be the way you'd go about it. But in my brain, I'm like, oh my God, no one would ever let anyone trace over with a Sharpie. No.
My Mylar was about a foot longer, taller than it needed to be, so that I always had at least 6 inches overlapping. Mm-hmm. I had about 6 inches overlapping on either side, so that I had that.
So there's no achoo. Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. And of course, I was there for a long time, so I also had something to drink. So that was a glass of my water in a little sippy cup that was set aside, and
And here's the learning in there. If you're really nice and you seem like you're responsible, museums will let you do whatever you want with their stuff.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, if you build the trust, you're probably going to be okay.
I also have to say that I did just write down the quote of round to the nearest reality.
I
Like
like
that
that too.
is perfection. And
That is a
I did credit you here. Like I will be like,
thank you.
that's
Well,
going to be a thing we say now.
Dr. Michael Heckenberger of I think he's retired now from Gainesville, Florida, archaeologist, worked in the Amazon. It was his quote. He was in a field school that I did, and then we worked together. We were colleagues for a long time, and round to the nearest reality was definitely one of Heck's. So
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I like it.
Moving forward here,
Yes.
on page 140 of your book, you comment about the state's several crazy quilt guilds.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? And are those guilds still active in making crazy quilts?
Yes, they're active making crazy. I think there's three. I think when I checked, there were three. It's been a while. One of them somebody from one of them just contacted me, but this particular guild has never actually made a full-sized quilt. I mean, I knew there was an active crazy quilt group. I mean, these are active crazy quilt guilds. This is what they do is make crazy quilts. So silly me, I thought they made, crazy quilts. And so far they had never made anything bigger than a foot. And they had all these questions about how do you attach these? So, I am not a crazy quilter, but I do know how you do that sort of, I do know how they're constructed historically and all that. I am a quilter, so I was able to help them out with that. But yeah, so they do some work. It's through Pine Tree Quilt Guild, and that's how I know about them.
Wow. I can't say
Yeah.
I've heard of a crazy quilt guilds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and much less
Anywhere
three
else.
of them in one state. Like that's amazing.
Yeah. Because and a couple of them used to call me and want to see the collection, and it was like, we don't have room. We don't have room to where the textiles are stored. We don't have room to have everybody gather around anything. So it makes it really difficult to show a bunch of quilts to people.
I was going to say you might want to tell some of them to get on over to the Shelburne because they currently have a crazy quilt exhibit.
Oh, cool. I will do that.
Or they can tune into our show because I'm going to show quilts from that exhibit
Yeah.
on here. But wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. We have the collection. I think there's something like, oh boy, I've lost track. When I became somebody left and I became in charge of the textiles at that point. When she left, I became in charge of the textiles. And at that point there were 17 crazy quilts. And I'm like, okay, it's deaccession time. Because a lot of these I know they're going to be in crap condition. The problem with crazy quilts is people treasure them. And so we actually know more about the makers of those. There's better provenance for each of those crazy quilts than for anything else. I wound up not deaccessioning any of them, but I said, that's it? No more? Well, let me tell you, the gods laugh when you say something like that. So I think there's now something like 25 in the collection, but there were some real gems that came up. As soon as I said, no more crazy quilts, all these wonderful crazy quilts came out it was great. So we have a lot more now.
Steph, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I was just glancing to see. Maybe getting back into some of the stories about these quilts in the book. I mean, the connections that you made with some of the church groups. We were like boggled our mind. I think Jill and I were just like, did you follow this? Like, we need the murder board with the strings. Were there any that
Yes, wait.
were there any that you found like particularly fascinating, or just where you were like,
I couldn't believe how many we kept finding from Cumberland Center. I mean, it was like, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. And it got to the point where there's a couple that we know are out there. We know that they are from this one. And there's one that Historic New England. And we're like, no, that's not from wherever it is. It said it was York or something. We're like, no, that's Cumberland. And we went down and there weren't that many names on it, but they were Cumberland names. So that was really kind of fun. That was, I can't remember the question anymore, but yeah, that was the group that was the wildest.
it sounds like you could probably have a book just based on that group.
Yeah.
I could. If you come to seminar, I have a paper written on that. It's not just that group though. It's a whole bunch of other things as well, but it's that county. So it's the next step, but I could definitely have a book there if I wanted. Pam and I talked about it at one point, but she's got too many books in the pipeline.
But I mean, you could.
I could, absolutely. But Pam and I have, it's funny, Pam and I are, I've been looking at Maine quilts. She's been looking at potholder quilts. Well, guess what? There's a heck of a lot of overlap there.
Right.
And so we discovered several times our paths were crossing, and we've become fast friends as a result. And yeah, so I would want her involvement though. But we may have to go off to Honolulu. There's one in Honolulu.
I was gonna say you might just have to wait for her retirement then.
Yeah.
That should be like first on the list. I'll let her know.
Yeah, you let her know, yeah.
I'll tell her I have voluntold you to write a book with Laurie as soon as you hit retirement. But speaking of the book writing part, what do you think is the most difficult part of the process for you?
Getting over myself. That's the most difficult process. When I was writing my thesis, I would, this is horrible to admit. I mean, I would sit down and I would just be paralyzed. The thought of just having to write things down. But yeah, that's the hardest part is just sitting down and just saying, no, you have enough information. You've got some stuff really well figured out. Just do it. And because like I said, I've written so many labels in my life that it's kind of overwhelming to suddenly have enough data to actually be able to talk about it in a more detailed way. So that for me was the hardest part, is just sitting down and not procrastinating on it. And sometimes the best thing to do is pour yourself a glass of wine.
I was gonna say, like, do you have any tips or tricks that
Yeah,
you
a glass of wine.
use?
That's good. When I did an article in Antiques magazine, the magazine Antiques, and I got a hold of the guy who's now the director at the Shelburne. It's a friend of mine. And I said that I was excited about this, and he said, here's my advice. Just write, pour a nice big glass of wine and just write, because they're going to change everything you write. And the funny thing was they did, but their editors were so good, they still managed to keep my voice in there. But so anyway, that was just for that. And I did not, in fact, have a big glass of wine, because I can't do that. My body doesn't like doing that. It rebels. So, but yeah, it's hard to just let yourself just say, look, it doesn't have to be perfect, just write. And sooner or later, once you get through that, then I can write all day. And I'll be excited about what I'm doing, and I'll be like, oh, and I'll have to like write things down. Don't forget, blah, 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 and have little notes about don't forget these 3 points, because otherwise I can just get ahead of myself. And then the first draft is often rubbish, and then you have to go back and say, oh, right, but this actually belongs in this other chapter, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of interweaving of all the things that you write.
Nope, that's good advice. I'm having flashbacks of like sitting at my desk and it's 2 a.m. and I'm like, oh, like.
Yeah.
I'm a morning writer. I'm a first, like 5 in the morning, I would get up and write. And
Bless your heart.
Well, this was grad school.
I probably hadn't even had gone to bed at that point.
Yeah, I can't write at night. I just have no, even right now, my command of the English language has slipped, because it's after 5 p.m. But
Esther just commented that there's actually a theory about the importance of the shitty first draft, and I completely agree. I'm the same way, where like I would just have to get the thoughts out of me, and then finesse them later.
Neil Gaiman says the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
yeah. So we already decided what's next. That's you writing a book with Pam. So
thinking, no. Next is going to Honolulu, and then today we decided that we need to go check out some quilts in Wales.
Say what?
Yeah.
Can we fit in your luggage?
Yeah, like
My best friend lives in Cardiff, and she only has 2 spare rooms, so I'm sorry.
Steph and I,
Oh,
Steph and
yeah.
I can. I was gonna say like we can just stack
Yeah.
against the wall.
Yeah, we can. What's the thing in with the Victorian age of the poor houses where they just had that rope that you just sort of leaned over?
Leaned over, yeah. that's it.
We're all about that. We'll sleep with the pets.
right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So, but in all seriousness, you are involved in so many things, and you're one of those people, like many of the authors we talk to, who it's like, how do you make the most of this 24 hours that we seem to squander?
Oh man, I am horrible. I could get so much more done if I would just put this thing away, you know, because I can just get sucked into it. All of a sudden, 2 hours are gone. So it's really a matter of putting that away, putting it on the charger, turning it off, whatever it takes, so that I can focus because there's so many cool things to do, and yeah, I need to do that more.
I think we both, there's so many of the all the things. We always want to be doing all the things.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, do you have like the next thing Laurie wants to go after, or is it?
I'm looking at something. And I'm not sure about it yet. And there are 2 quilts. Well, 2 quilts, a block and a quilt. And one block is was made by Dorcas, whose last name I can't remember. Whose brother was named George, whose last name I can't remember because I've been doing other things for a while. And George was the only American hanged for slaving. He was a slaver. He was not a good man. And he was hanged for slaving. His sister and her husband left town. They moved away from the shame of it all. But that was really something that I looked at. And then there's another quilt that Pam helped the Maine State Museum get. And no, she didn't. That was the wrong quilt. Never mind. She helped us get another quilt. But we were looking at this quilt together also. And in it, there's all kinds. The girls are writing. She's the one that figured out that this quilt that has all the stars, it's a Civil War quilt. She's the one that figured out that blue, red, and then a shield in the middle. She's the one that figured out that the connection there was actually a girls' school. And the girls wrote a lot of, they wrote their names, and a lot of them wrote what town they were from, which was great. And one of them, I knew which family it was from in Richmond, because that's where I was living at the time. But there was one girl whose name I can't remember. So you can tell this is still at the very, very, very preliminary stages. I'm just thinking about this stuff. But her address was Matanzas, Cuba. And then I was listening to a lecture that was happening in Portland, and it was talking about slaving, or slaves in Maine. And it turns out that a lot of people, a lot of families who were active in the slave trade, when it became illegal to import slaves to the United States, they moved to Matanzas, Cuba. And I thought, wow, this would be something really interesting to look into. You know, because here's a family who's living in Matanzas, Cuba, that has Maine roots. And and it made me wonder, did they ever know? They probably never knew that their daughter was making a union quilt, a quilt to benefit the union cause. But that was just really, really interesting, is how deep do these connections in Maine go? I mean, I know of another object, 2 objects actually in the Maine State Museum collection. They're from earlier. They're from the 1740s, 1770s, 1760s. They're from before the Revolution, but just just before the Revolution. And that family moved to down east. They moved down east to Stockton Springs. No, Columbia Falls. They moved to Columbia Falls, Maine, which is past Stockton Springs. It's quite a ways out. And they had an enslaved woman who, of course, became free in Maine in 1783. But guess what? She never left the family. Where was she going to go from Stockton Springs? Well, truth to tell, she probably could have hopped on a boat and made it to Canada without any trouble. Well, I won't say without any trouble because you never know. But she wasn't that far from Canada. But on the other hand, I don't know how old she was. I don't know what she. So anyway, she served the family her whole life. So there's things to learn about that kind of thing that would be really intriguing. Not sure if I'm going to pursue it or just sort of turn somebody else onto it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, now I've turned everybody onto it, just telling them about it. But it's really tempting.
Mm-hmm.
I have to really think about how much time it's going to take, and do I have the wherewithal to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm really more of a material culture person, not a archives person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that it does, and that topic, I'm gonna guess, is probably one of those things where once you pull on a thread,
Yeah.
like you're really
Yeah.
gonna find 700 more.
Well, and there's things that I think as historians we need to remember, which is things that were just taken for granted in the day and that seem benign enough. I mean, Mainers were complicit in slavery. There's no question about it. The cotton mills used cotton that raised by enslaved people.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who had the Bates mill, he saw the writing on the wall early on, and he stockpiled and stockpiled and stockpiled. So the irony, of course, is that then when the Civil War hit, he started making tents and Conestoga wagon covers out of cotton that had been raised by enslaved people. So that's that for irony for the Union. He made that for the Union Army. But there's things like even if you didn't make a ship, there's a few ships that were Maine ships that became slavers. One made in Cumberland, in fact. But there's also people who made the lines for ropes. If you're a landsman, ropes are as soon as ropes have anything to do with boats, they become called lines. Go figure. So you making the lines, doing the iron work, baking hardtack, salting cod. The biggest place that salt cod went was to the Caribbean. All that kind of stuff. So it goes beyond just sugar and molasses and rum. It's much more insidious.
Mm-hmm.
I think I mean, it never ceases to boggle my mind that you can take a quilt and literally like pull the threads and you get these amazing stories. And as much as I love I love fabric. I mean, I quilt and collect fabric.
Yes.
But I think that I often say quilts are documents, and I
They are.
when I hear people like you and Pam Weeks and other folks talk, it really strikes me that yes, decorative art, yes, tells us a lot, about the maker, but it's this kind of situating this object in time. The material culture of it all, and then it's these stories around it, and I think in a time when history is maybe being rewritten some places or being ignored, this is keeping these stories going is so very important. And it's a humble quilt. It's a humble quilt that does that for us.
I'm going to share another picture. So this is the Bart Messenger quilt. And there are all kinds of clues in here about the community. And the quilts, a lot of the people lived on the main road, which in those days was called She Street, because so many of the men were gone. Either they were at sea or they were, dead. So there's you can kind of learn a lot about a town in here, and there's a couple of blocks that the people that made them died 2 weeks apart, 12 days apart. You start finding little things about a town when you start looking at these. And album quilts are great for that because you have names and you can find that. It's not like if it's a quilt like the quilt behind either of you that don't have any names, you have fewer places that you can sort of hook into a community.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Speaking of community, um, interestingly, like we know that this is not a state documentation book. Um, and I feel like most books we were coming across that say like Massachusetts quilts, that's a state documentation book.
Mhm.
Um, is there a Maine documentation project? And
Yeah.
is there uh are there plans to publish any of that information? Are you at all involved in the documentation? Like, what can you tell us anything about any of that?
Yeah, there was a very active program for about 20 years. And it was two women that worked. One of them, Wendy Reed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was Cindy Black. And Wendy and Cindy are incredibly knowledgeable. And they are, I won't say they're computer phobic, but close. So the problem was there's thousands, hundreds and thousands, I don't know, of pages of documentation that are in pencil, um, and haven't been scanned, and then a third of the pictures got scanned, or a quarter of the pictures slides got scanned, but nobody ever linked any of these together. So at this point, the Pine Tree Quilt Guild paid the fee for all this to go on to the quilt index. But the problem is nobody ever did it. Nobody, and I'm not saying that to speak poorly of Wendy or Cindy, because that's not something they were ever going to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was never a sort of anybody who was really, I don't know, just really good at doing that sort of thing, who was willing to take it on as a project and get people excited about it.
I was gonna say, Esther, my dear, are you listening here? She's in Maine.
Oh, where are you in Maine?
It sounds like we need to get a contingent to, because it's one of those things where I can totally understand Wendy, and you said the other woman's name was Cindy.
Yep.
I can totally see them being overwhelmed, because when I just picture the room at the New England Quilt Museum where all the paper files are stored for the Massachusetts documentation, I could see where someone looking at something like that would be like, oh my God, that's so overwhelming and such a hill to
Especially the
climb.
quilt index, it's not like the easiest thing you've ever
No,
done.
it's not super user friendly.
No, it's not. And I mean, it's great to have that info there, but trying to get there, oh boy. I mean, it makes me tired. And
Well, so at least now that we have, younger people that were born and raised on computers,
yeah, are fluent.
that could get this done pretty quickly. By the way, Esther, answering your question, she said she's in Bangor and she's on the faculty
Bangor.
She's on the faculty of UMaine.
Oh, cool beans.
So,
Yeah.
and she is a brand new AQSG member, and she will be at seminar.
Yay. Oh, let's talk. Let's talk.
Actually, you know what? You probably met her at the Augusta show. She was there with Vanessa.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, you
Huh.
met her.
I don't know if did I meet you? I don't think I did.
I mean, I could see that's a big show. I could see where if you did, you might not remember.
Or we just went like, hi, and I met
Yeah.
other people that
But
way. Yeah.
she said let's grab tea and hang out, and then she said she
Yes.
doesn't think you guys met. But Esther, I'm just thinking, with some of our New England people here, like we could probably help rescue that project.
Yeah. And there's I don't know where the originals are. They're probably in Cindy Black's attic, but I have the museum has copies of everything and has the slides. And like I said, some of those have been copied. And there's CDs of it. That's how old this stuff is. The CDs. with it.
CDs aren't that old.
Well, I know, but in computer years, they're geriatric. So, I mean,
If you told me they were on the 3x5
oh
floppy,
God,
then I might be like, oh,
thank heaven, no, they're not.
You might be able to fit like one quilt picture on on floppy.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, yeah, exactly.
Esther just said, I think we should rescue this. She said, I might be able to arrange some undergrads to help support the project.
Okay, and let's talk to the computer. Let's talk to the current curator. And she will be there at some point. I don't know if she's going for the whole thing, but she's going to at least some of seminar. And so, Jill, Stephanie, if just help me, I will be on Screech at that point. So help me with a reminder when we get to, maybe the beginning of October so that we can set up a time when we can maybe meet with Angela Goebel-Bain will need to get in on this. She's the curator now.
I'm making a note right now.
And Esther, I have some suggestions of what you can have the grad students doing. Or the undergrads doing, I'm sorry.
Well, and she did just say that she has graduate students that have no idea what a CD is.
Yes, exactly. Well, it's like when I was doing work on the Civil War.
But older.
Yeah.
But assuming, all the information becomes amalgamated somewhere. Yeah. Were there any plans at any point of a state book?
Well, this was the state book as I just wrote it. And I did look through a lot of the pictures that had been, scanned, hoping to see if there was, is there anything that I really need to find? And just the ones that had been scanned, there were some good quilts, but there was nothing that was any newer, anything that was outside what I had in terms of, if there had been really just a Boffo quilt, I would have tried to track that down.
Okay, so you consulted those for the book.
I spent hours and hours and hours going through the photos.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because the photos and the CDs and the slides and the papers were all in my office, so it was very easy to do. But it took hours.
Yeah.
So, I guess, amazingly, it is almost 8:15 our time. So,
oh my gosh,
time flies when you're having fun, right? I guess if we could maybe just sort of wrap up with you, like, what did we not ask you that we should have, or what do you want to tell us about Maine Quilts that we didn't ask?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if I would love for more people to be doing quilt research. I really would, because there's so much that you can learn that, that really material culture is so important for that. And impressing upon people that, please let us know who made this quilt. That would be so helpful. And for a lot of people, a lot of things, it's gone, or the stories are so hiccupy. But yeah, I mean, the joy of material culture studies, and I know you guys have heard those words before, so I don't have to explain what it is that you can actually start including a voice of people who don't get heard otherwise. And that's one of the things that I really love about quilts, is that, and plus they're gorgeous. They're absolutely gorgeous. It's really fun. And I hope that it costs money. It's expensive to go to seminar. It really is. I understand that. I didn't go very often at the beginning because I just didn't feel like I could afford it. But I go pretty much every year now because I just can't help myself. It's just so wonderful. But yeah, if you can make it, get a couple of friends, rent a room, get an Airbnb, whatever, and come on up, because the amount of information that you will get is just staggering. And there really is something for everybody. There'll be 2 exhibits this year. The first one is called Early Quilts, Fabulous Fabrics, and it's quilts from before 1850. and there's one that just got added to it, a quilt that just got added to it, and I call it the Audrey 3 because there's flowers in it that remind me of Audrey from Little Shop of Horrors. It's absolutely fabulous, absolutely fabulous 1840s quilt. And then the other exhibit is the study quilt. Did either of you guys do a study quilt?
Stephanie did.
You did, all right. And
Maybe,
so
maybe still doing a study quilt.
yes, well, you got to hurry up, girlfriend.
I
I'm
know.
pretty sure a photo has to go out September 1st. Yeah, I only know that because somebody else who's having a panic attack because a photo has to go out September 1st. But yeah, so that'll be a very modern exhibit. So these two things are just completely different time and aesthetic wise, will be really a fun contrast. And then going to see, even if all you do is come on Saturday when it's the public day, the vendors, oh my gosh, the vendors.
It's a whole other exhibit, basically.
Yeah.
It's like an exhibit of 1,000 quilts, and you get to touch them. It's absolute, and it will be some of the best quilts you will ever see will be there.
And you get to meet some of the country's premier dealers, like
Absolutely.
like a Julie Silver,
Yeah.
and things like that, and Nazania Cord. Like, you
Yep.
know, if you've heard those names out in the antiquing world or the curation world, I know Julie's got an exhibit up at Iowa Quilt Museum
Yeah.
right now.
For mom's quilts.
You get to meet those people, and
Yeah.
they're very nice.
They're really nice. They're really nice.
Steph and
And-
I did some videoing in the vendors last year,
Yeah.
and streamed about it, and they were actually really excited for people
Yeah.
to see their stuff, you know, online and commenting.
Yeah.
Esther just said, I've got to lock down my checking account before going. Girlfriend,
Totally.
true story.
Totally.
Yeah, forget about
It's
setting
just
budgets.
a dangerous,
Yeah,
dangerous,
right.
dangerous place. And what else was I going to say about? There was something else that was just like so darn much fun there. Oh yeah, if you come not on Saturday, but if you just come if you register, the silent auction is amazing, and there are deals to be had. That is
Hundreds of
nobody-
items.
Try thousands. We now have 35 boxes so far of things for silent auction.
And that's not book related, right? That's not
No,
book.
that includes books. There's about
Oh,
a
that's
dozen of there's a dozen boxes of books.
Okay.
At least
And
a
you
dozen.
get great deals, guys, on books. The first year Stephanie and I went to Louisville, I had a stack of books that was huge, because the nice thing is that a lot of these people retiring that don't necessarily need these huge libraries anymore, they are happy to pass them along for pennies on the dollar.
We have about 20 something boxes of books already. That's why we're not accepting books this year, is because we have Judy Roach's collection of books.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Including a copy of Bill Vulcaning's New York Beauty, which goes for hundreds of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And so that one has a price of $50 on it. And that's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my gosh, these books are just wonderful.
Yeah, and I mean, you're gonna find quilts, you're gonna find quilt tops, you're gonna find blocks, you're gonna find Stephanie. What did you get the first year that you were fighting Dana Balsamo over?
The oh gosh, what's the name of it? It's a trade journal. It's actually a fabric industry trade journal.
Oh
It's
wow.
like American Textiles, I think, and it has actual swatches of fabric in it. And I was trying to get a run of them, and I had to beat Dana on half of them because I couldn't afford to beat her on all of them.
That's so funny. Yeah, and yeah, it's like that. And we had, I don't know how many, I think we have like 5 big boxes of blocks. And again, a lot of them were from Judy, so a lot of them are 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's losing some of the some of these powerhouses in our community is really disheartening, but also, oh my gosh, their collections.
Yeah.
things that have gone up for auction, or, in this case, Judy, it's coming through AQSG. And I've been the beneficiary also of just members who have said, I have access to this person's, things, and I'm happy to find or sell you something from it. And it's just like, oh my God, it's great to be the beneficiary of, this, just incredible lifetimes of collecting and researching, and
Yeah, there'll be things like there's a couple of there were a couple quilts that were in horrible shape, but the fact, like in one of them, I think Judy made, I think 4 or 5 or 6 fabrics reproductions from them, and so we have just cut those down. So even if somebody can't afford a lot or can't, but is interested in older fabrics, I mean, these are 1830s fabrics, and you'll be able to get a bunch of different ones from one quilt for $5.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of amazing.
And I know, I mean, it's one of those things where when we lose these powerhouses, it's very sad because we want the people. But I will say, when some people get really sad when their collections go to auction, or this scenario, like an open sale, the way that I actually think about it is I try to think about it as those people pollinating the wider
like
community with knowledge and their things, because now that object doesn't just have the, oh my God, 1830s fabrics. It has and this is from Judy Roach and her collection, and maybe whatever provenance comes with that, is to go like, well, she found this when she was on, a trip to blah, 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 and bought it in the
Unfortunately, we don't have how she found most of it, because there were an unfortunate series of events, including a flood that destroyed records and computers, and then she got sick and had a bug that crossed the brain barrier and caused her to lose some of her memory, and so a lot of the provenance on her quilts was lost, which is too bad, because she had in fact recorded as much as she could.
But at least there's the provenance of, like, this was hers.
This was hers.
Yeah, and it's a way to, I mean, in a certain way, like, it keeps people alive.
Keep them alive.
And their work and their contributions, and, ending on that topic for you of community.
Yeah, community. It's a great thing. Yep.
Well, we've actually managed almost an hour and a half, believe it or not, Laurie.
Oh man,
time really flies when we're having fun.
When we're having fun, we're talking quilts.
And again, just to wrap up, thank you so much for being here. Like, it's Stephanie and I are always talking about, like, it's such a big deal that people like yourself are willing to, like, come on here and talk with us and talk with our viewers. And we really, really appreciate that. Like, we've got thank yous coming into the chat here.
I can't see anything in the chat. Oh well.
Well, we've got Esther here. Thank you. We've got LJ. Hey, girl, you haven't talked all night. She said, thank you very much. I want you to know, like, how much, and you said 10 years to write this book.
Yeah.
We appreciate these so much.